On a seemingly ordinary day at Sun Records in Memphis, something extraordinary unfolded. It's hard to believe now, but back then, no one even knew they were recording history. The date was January 28, 1956, and the place was buzzing with an unusual mix of musical talent. What began as a casual photo opportunity turned into a legendary jam session, one that would forever change the landscape of rock and roll. It started innocently enough. Elvis Presley, fresh off a string of hits and about to leave for Vegas, decided to unwind at the studio. He wanted to hear some playback of the songs they had been working on. Little did anyone know, the music that filled the room would echo through decades. As Elvis sat at the piano doodling notes, a conversation sparked that would lead to an impromptu performance. Sam Phillips, the visionary behind Sun Records, saw an opportunity for a photo shoot. He quickly called Johnny Cash, inviting him over, and reached out to the local newspaper Memphis Press-Scimitar to bring in a photographer. Before long, the studio was filled not just with musicians but with reporters and photographers, all eager to capture a piece of this unique moment. Elvis, ever the entertainer, picked up a piano and started playing. Jerry Lee Lewis, present and impressed, remarked in disbelief at Elvis's piano skills. The atmosphere was relaxed. These were friends and fellow musicians enjoying each other's company and music. Johnny Cash arrived and the photo shoot began. Pictures were taken of Elvis at the piano with Carl Perkins and the two Johns, Johnny Cash and J.P., Jack's son, though in this case it was J.D. John Bell, but the confusion with Jack Clement's background adds to the colorful tapestry of the day behind him. Marilyn Evans, Elvis's girlfriend, sat at the piano as well, though her image is often cropped out of the famous photo. What happened next was pure magic. The musicians began playing and the recording machine, left on by accident, captured over 35 songs in just 50 minutes. It was a mix of country, gospel, blues, and rock and roll, with each artist adding their unique flair. Elvis, in particular, stole the show. He talked about his experiences in Vegas, shared funny impressions, and showed off his vocal range with covers of other artists' songs. The session was unplanned, and the musicians didn't think they were officially recording. If they had known, they might have tried harder, but the spontaneity gave the session its raw, unpolished charm. It was a jam session, a true moment of musical camaraderie. Among those present was W.S. Holland, the drummer, who later reminisced about how they were all just playing for fun. Jack Clement, the guitarist, turned on the machine, and the rest, as they say, is history. The recordings remained hidden for 30 years due to copyright issues, but when they were finally released in the 1990s, they offered an unprecedented glimpse into a pivotal moment in music history. This day wasn't just about the music, it was about the people involved. Jerry Lee Lewis, not yet a household name, saw himself on equal footing with Elvis. Carl Perkins, content to play guitar rather than sing, showed no signs of jealousy. The session revealed much about their personalities and their views on music and fame. As the day unfolded, it became clear that they were creating something special, even if they didn't realize it at the time. The session captured the essence of early rock and roll, blending genres and pushing boundaries. It was a day filled with laughter, music, and a sense of possibility, a day that would forever be remembered as the day the $1 Million Quartet came together, even if only in spirit. This unexpected gathering at Sun Records is a testament to the power of music to bring people together, regardless of their status or fame. It's a reminder that sometimes the best moments in history are those we stumble upon, unplanned and unforgettable. In the early days of rock and roll, things were very different. Parents and older folks didn't like it at all. They thought it was bad music. My dad was one of them. He believed rock and roll was an abomination. He especially hated the Everly Brothers. One time when I said I loved their music, he got really angry. He even hit me, but that was a long time ago. Back then, most grown-ups over 30 didn't think much of the new music. A friend told a career officer he wanted to be a rock and roll singer. The officer said, "You already have too many qualifications. You don't need to be able to read or write." This shows how much they disliked the music. When I think of those days, I often think of the movie Hairspray. But back then, kids like me couldn't imagine the world we live in now. Parents today actually enjoy their kids' music, even if it's rock and roll. Rock and roll started to gain some ground in the UK thanks to some key releases. Before 1956, there was no real way for British listeners to hear Elvis Presley's music. That changed with the release of Heartbreak Hotel. A man named Wally Ridley, who worked for HMV, a big record company, got a call from RCA Victor. They wanted him to release some new American songs. Wally picked Heartbreak Hotel without fully understanding the lyrics. He thought the title was the main catch. When Heartbreak Hotel came out, it was a huge shock. HMV got terrible reviews for releasing it. Some radio stations and newspapers said it was garbage. But despite all the bad reviews, the song became very popular. People couldn't stop talking about it. Even the press that disliked it had to admit it was a hit. Many British music critics were very harsh. They called rock and roll bad taste and said it was decadent. They thought it was too loud and not proper. But for many young people, it was exciting and new. They loved it even if the grown-ups didn't understand or like it. One young man, Ray Connolly, remembered how Elvis changed everything for him. Before Elvis, he liked popular music, but nothing compared to the moment he heard Elvis. For many, like Ray, Elvis was like a revelation. They felt a connection to this new kind of music that no one else seemed to get. Even at school, kids who loved rock and roll were often seen as odd. But for those of us who were into it, it felt like discovering a whole new world. When I started writing about music, I got to meet many famous musicians, including Elvis. It was an incredible journey, one that showed how music can connect people, even when others don't understand its power. In the year 1956, something extraordinary happened in the world of music. A sound called rock and roll took everyone by surprise and changed everything. For many young people, it felt like magic. They had never seen music like this before. It was not just about the songs, but also about the feeling it gave them. Before rock and roll, music was often played by trained musicians who had learned from a young age, but rock and roll was different. It said that anyone could make music, not just those who had formal training. This idea was very exciting. It made people think music could be for everyone. One of the first big rock and roll songs was Heartbreak Hotel by Elvis Presley. Many people first heard this song by accident. They were working or just going about their day when they stumbled upon it on the radio or in a record shop. Elvis's voice and style were new and captivating. Even those who didn't know much about music felt something special. For some, like Martin Carthy, Terry Dene, and Wee Willie Harris, the moment was clear. They heard Heartbreak Hotel and knew they wanted to sing like that. It was as if a door to a new world had opened. For George Harrison, it was a life-changing moment he heard while riding his bike. For Paul McCartney, it was finding a record in a shop and listening to it carefully, feeling the start of something big. But not everyone could easily hear these new songs. In 1956, most people had to wait to hear music. They couldn't just pick any song they wanted. They had to go to a record shop and listen to songs in a booth before buying. This was especially hard for younger people, like the 11-year-old who loved the sound of Elvis but couldn't hear Heartbreak Hotel because he was too young to be alone in a booth. Despite this, the impact of Heartbreak Hotel was huge. It reached number 2 in the UK charts. Elvis's image and sound captured people's imaginations. Even Pat Boone, who had a more traditional style, had a hit with a different song. His music resonated with many, especially those whose loved ones were away in the military. But Elvis wasn't the only one making waves. Gene Vincent's Bebop Alula was even more shocking to some. The BBC banned parts of the song because they thought it was too suggestive. Yet, this only added to its appeal. Vincent's music was wild and exciting, telling stories that sounded both strange and thrilling. Little Richard joined the excitement with his energetic performances in songs like Rip It Up and Long Tall Sally. His wild appearance and powerful music left a big impression. People were amazed by how he played the piano, almost like he was attacking it. As 1956 went on, more and more rock and roll music flooded the UK. It was as if the music world had flipped upside down. The songs were loud, the styles were new, and the energy was infectious. For many, it felt like a revolution. This revolution wasn't just about the music itself. It was about a shift in how people thought about music. It showed that music could be a voice for everyone, not just those who had been trained. It was raw, it was real, and it was here to stay. For those who experienced it for the first time, rock and roll was more than just a genre. It was a new way of feeling and expressing themselves.